It's 16 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is WLEA Hornell, 1480 AM. And now Kevin Doran is going to host a call-in program between Hornell Mayor Shawn Hogan and Republican challenger Mike Caruso. Kevin?
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan. You kind of told what's happening here on WLEA. We're now going to open our microphones to our listeners and give them a chance to call the candidates. Mike Caruso, the Republican candidate for mayor, and Shawn Hogan, the Democrat incumbent mayor. Now, a couple of ground rules, first of all. We are opening this up for questions, not for speeches. So if you want to call in and ask a question of one candidate or both, fine. This is not a time for you to call up with a speech, and I will not tolerate any kind of personal attacks on either one of these gentlemen who've been kind enough to come in here and take questions from the listeners live, unrehearsed. So if you're calling up with the intention of insulting somebody or making a speech, please save yourself the trouble. I'll cut you off. We're really interested in giving you a chance to ask questions of the candidates. You may direct the question at both candidates or at either one. We have a caller on the line, and we'll go to the phone in a moment. First of all, I remind you our number is area code 607, naturally, 324-1480. As we meet the candidates here on WLA, we go to call one. Good morning. Good afternoon, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Good afternoon. My question is to Mr. Caruso. I wonder if elected, if the city's going to be run like on a Saturday, Sunday basis, like it was when the Washington School went down. Now, this hasn't been an issue yet. The Washington School went down. He purchased it. It was supposed to be a landmark and everything, and all of a sudden they were going to refurbish it, and it was part of an agreement. All of a sudden it comes down on a Saturday. You know, I mean, if this is what's going to happen, if things are going to be done behind the residents' backs and everything like that, I mean, what good's it going to do?
Okay, I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but I don't have to answer it. All right, go ahead. Mike Caruso, go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that question up. You brought up quite a bit that you really don't know a lot about, okay? The Washington School came down after a study was done, and it wasn't paid by the taxpayers, by the way, the study wasn't. It was paid by myself. We were going to try to make apartment units out of it. I brought Cromwell Construction with an architect and engineer out of Rochester, New York. It was economically unfeasible to do. When I took that school down, I saved the taxpayers, the school district taxpayers, at least $500,000. I took a problem off their hands. Nobody seemed to want to give me any credit for that, though. Everything was done proper and by the book, so I think the taxpayers should be thankful what I did for them. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay, caller? Anything else? Thank you. We'll go to our next caller. Hello, you're on the air.
Mike, this is Mark Mahoney calling from the Hornell Police Department. I've heard threats that if you're elected, you're going to be doing away with the K-9 program. This is a program that's funded totally by me going out and getting donations and doing seminars and obedience classes. It's not funded by the taxpayers at all. Why would you want to get away with a program like that?
Well, Mark, I'll tell you what, Mike Caruso, nor anybody in his campaign has made any threats, okay? There's been an awful lot of rumors started since this campaign's going on, and if people look where they're coming from City Hall. I have made the statement several times that the police department overtime budget was $20,000 over and above what they had allotted. I plan on bringing that back in line. I plan on getting management back on the job and not in Albany and Vermont and all over the country. As far as each thing that goes on with the department, we'll have to take a look at it and see what we can afford at the time. But as of date, I have not said anything about eliminating the dog.
Well, on August 4th at the Ox Roast, Mike, you specifically told Officer Jerry Murray, who has the horse, he was going to do away with the horse and the canine. I'm just wondering, you know, why you're saying one thing and then you change your mind and make a different statement.
Mark, I don't know what the purpose of your call is, but you've been bad-mouthing me all over the community, and if you think that's fit for a police officer to be doing, I think you ought to take a look at the rules and regulations and also take a look at yourself, okay? A lot of things are said, but I have not said anything. It would be a foolish part on my part to say I'm going to do something that I haven't taken an in-depth look at. I don't make foolish decisions, Mark.
Well, that's
okay?
why I was wondering why you made a decision or made a statement like that without looking at it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, we'll go to the next caller. Thank you.
Just in response to
Yes.
something that Mike said there, that rumors have emanated from City Hall. I don't know where Mike gets that in any political campaign, and unfortunately, more in this one than any other. There's been a lot of campaign rhetoric and a lot of rumors floating around, not only involving both candidates. I don't lay claim to any of those rumors, Mike, and I would not do that. If you're going to have that type of thing, fortunately, I can look in the mirror and be honest and know that it has not emanated from me.
Let's go back to the phones. Hello, you're on the air.
Kevin?
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to address this to the mayor.
Okay.
Mayor, how come at one end of Park Drive we have people that are only paying like 10% of what they should be under taxes, and the other end, the people are only paying 9%, and the new buildings in the middle are paying 40 to 50% more than the people on the end are paying? I don't understand this, because the people in the middle are the people from Hornell, and the people on the ends are from out of town. They get more of a tax break than us local people. I don't understand that. Could you explain that to me?
Sure, Jerry. You're talking about the tax structure and taxation. The PNC Plaza, or the Railroad Center Mall, was a significant industrial, a significant commercial development of over $2 million that employs many people and generates a lot of sales tax. One of the things that they invoked when they came into the community was to a payment in lieu of taxes schedule, which they do pay payment in lieu of taxes to the IDA of about $15,000 per year, and that's distributed to the school district and the city of Hornell. As far as your new building goes, and we have talked about it many times in regards to your assessment, Jerry, I'm not the assessor, and I don't control that. And it's good that the assessments are controlled politically, because then you'd have all kinds of problems with that. The assessor is a civil service position. They assess based on current standards, and there is an avenue through the appeal board and then through court cases to deal with anyone who is upset with assessments. You have taken it to one step. You've taken it to the appeal board. You have not taken it to a certiorari or to the court, and I've pushed you to do so. But also, Jerry, you neglect to say that you took advantage of 485B, which is the real property tax law that allows a 50% tax reduction in the first year and 45 the second, and downscale through the 10th year when it goes to full value. So you have taken advantage of that, and I informed you of that program. As far as you're upset with your assessment, you have to continue on to court or go back to the appeal board. That is a process that's out of my hands.
Mayor, who pays? Where does Vicky get her pay from?
Pardon me?
Where does Vicky get her pay from? Does she get it from the city, or does she get it from...
She is a civil service employee that took an exam. She's on the city payroll. She gets it from the city general fund.
So apparently, when she comes around and assesses these things, that maybe we ought to give her more schooling, because I know if I price something out wrong, the wrong way, my people do, I either have to come down on them or get rid of them, or go out of business. And I've taken advantage of that tax law, because that was offered to me when you build new.
And,
but that doesn't mean I should be paying 10 times what PNC should be paying, so I'm getting 50% off, because 10 years from now I'm going to be paying up through the nose.
Like I said, Jerry, I think you've got to complete the process.
My lawyer tried to complete the process with your lawyer and got no place.
Well, it's not with our lawyers. The process, you can take it to a certiorari, to court, and have the court rule on it. That's the answer to that question. We can argue about this all day.
Well, I feel it's awful. I mean, I got a list of people right here, and the other one is not. The other one, Covered Wagon, is not on assessment, or is not under the IDA. The other one, Covered Wagon, has got. Let me see. I got my lot cost me $3,000, and they assessed it for $15,000. Covered Wagon's got 5 acres. I got a half an acre. His assessment should be $150 just for his land. His assessment is $99,000. Now, how is that fair? We're both from Hornell.
Jerry, like I said, you're arguing the wrong fellow. I'm not the assessor, or nor I am the appeal board. You have to continue that to go to those process. There's a legal process that's set up to handle those things.
In other words, you have no control over.
Would it be fair for me, Jerry, to say yes? I believe Jerry Farringer is being over-assessed, and go to the assessor and have that done. Wouldn't you think people would think that's playing a little politics and favoritism? Jerry, that's why the process is set up like it is. There's a balance of powers.
I've been there twice and got thrown out twice.
Well, then I think you should continue to go back or get another lawyer and fight it.
Yeah, and it costs you all kinds of money.
Okay, caller, we got a lot of people waiting, and if it's okay, I'd like to move along. Is that all right, Jerry? Okay, let's go to the...
I'd like to say something on that last call, if I could, Kevin.
All right, go ahead.
I can kind of sympathize with Jerry down there having a new building in town, and he sees retailers coming in up the street, PNC and Phase, and they're putting up new buildings, and the Hornell City taxpayers are subsidizing them, but we don't look at food barns closed up, and we've lost Brooks Drugstore on Main Street. Jerry, when he gets to his full assessment, is going to be paying almost $8,000. That's an awful lot of money to be paying in property taxes right off the top when you run a small business, so I can sympathize with Jerry.
So can I, Mike. And, there's a process to follow, and that's why he's got to follow it.
Well, we have a caller on. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yes. I have a question for both candidates.
Okay.
Is there any waste in city government? And if so, in what specific areas?
Is there any way to what? I didn't catch that.
Is there any waste in city government?
Is there any waste in city government? And you want both candidates to answer that question, is that right?
Yes, please.
All right, thank you very much. All right, go ahead. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I certainly hope there isn't waste. I can't categorically sit here and say that there isn't. That's like the President of the United States or the Governor of the State of New York saying that there isn't any waste in their government. Obviously, we are a little bit in a better position locally to control that. I have what I feel are some of the best department heads that we could ever have in the city of Hornell, and I'm confident that they are doing what they should be doing. Anyone can be criticized at any point in time for any type of thing, but I would say categorically that if we do all we can to get the best services for the least amount of money, and I would say, to be honest, probably incidents where there is some mistakes made and there is some waste. But if we find out about it, we correct it. And I pride myself on our financial management, and I pride myself on the jobs that my department heads do.
All right, now that was Shawn Hogan and Mike Caruso. If you want to respond, she asked both candidates, so go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that. I feel that we have good city employees. One of my problems is with the city employee department heads. We seem to have absentee management down at City Hall. We got a chief of police in Albany all the time. We got the mayor that's in Albany all the time with Jim Griffin. We have the department, the superintendent buying property on the side hill and the taxpayers' money putting roads in up there. We have a street out on Madison Avenue that has been needed to be repaved for the last 5 or 6 years, but yet we're on the side hill using taxpayers' money, putting in roads to a private development so we can turn the road over to the taxpayers. I don't believe in that type of government.
Well, let me respond because there's obviously some allegations there. Mike has made some political fodder out of the fact that I'm president of the New York State Conference of Mayors, an honor that I am very proud to hold, and an office I'm very proud to hold, and I think it helps the city of Hornell just because of the stature it gives our community. In response to Mike, I have been out of town in Albany once, and that was in February. I have not been in Albany since February of this year. I also attended a mayor's conference in June for several days when I was inducted as president of the New York State Conference of Mayors. I haven't been out of town since. I work 10 to 12 hours a day. I'm available 24 hours a day, and I'm at functions and visiting the communities and neighborhoods around the city on weekends and attending events. So for Mike to say that I'm an absentee mayor and I'm always in Albany is a blatant, I would say, untruth. And as far as the police chief also is president of the New York State Police Chiefs Association, which requires that he be out of town on a number of occasions. And the Board of Public Safety and the City of Hornell Common Council knows that he has this position. And Mark Whitman is out of town, and those requires to be out of town for those functions. But also, when he comes back, he's working weekends. He's there nights. So Mark Whitman is an outstanding police chief, and I don't believe he should be criticized in that nature.
All right, now
I'd like to respond to that.
okay, you know what's happening? We're getting a debate going here, but don't blame me if you guys get a debate going. All right,
no, we're not debating. I'm not one. I'm not saying Mark Whitman is not a good police chief. I think Mark Whitman's very qualified. Okay, I don't think the taxpayers should be subsidizing your political career, Shawn, or the chief of police. We have a chief of police that's in Corning teaching. We have a chief of police that goes down to ball games in Elmira. He used to when I worked down there, and the taxpayers put the gas in his car. They paid his wages, and he collected a check, Empire and Games. I brought that problem to you several times, Shawn. You overlooked it. We wouldn't be here today on the radio if you'd have started listening a little while ago.
Well, that certainly is not a problem that was overlooked, Mike. The police chief, the chief of police has a car that's provided to him by the city as the fire chief. And they use that as their vehicles. It's part of the remuneration. Every community in the state of New York provides the same courtesies to their police chief and their fire chief. Now let's get back to Dave Oakes. You've made an allegation about Dave Oakes. Dave Oakes is probably the hardest working individual in this city, and he has done more to restructure the Public Works Department into a tremendous workforce that saves this community a tremendous amount of money. And these are people you're going to have to work with, Mike, if you are elected mayor. And how do you expect to work with these people by personally attacking them all the time?
I didn't personally attack anybody, okay? If the taxpayers look between now and November 2nd, I was on Seneca Street the other day at 10 after 8, and I seen 5 DPW trucks go by me within a matter of 2 minutes. I stopped and talked to the crews when they're standing around. I say, what's going on, guys? Well, we'd like to go further, but we don't dare. We don't have the supervision, all right? Nobody's personally attacking, and I think Dave Oakes is a good man, okay? But I think we got to buckle down and get a little bit better.
Gentlemen, I got to interrupt just a second. We got a lot of people waiting here. We billed it as a call-in, and as I understand it, there has been no debate agreed upon. I'm not personally opposed to you two going at it, but that wasn't the ground rule that you both agreed to. So let's go back to the phones, and thank you for waiting. They didn't wait. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Yeah, I got a question for Mr. Hogan.
Hogan, okay.
I'd like to know if you feel the IDA under Jim Griffin is doing a good job for Hornell. And I'd also like to know if Mr. Caruso agrees with the mayor's response or not.
All right, now we have two questions there. One, do you think the IDA under Jim Griffin is doing a good job? And he wants Mr. Caruso to respond to the same question. So go ahead.
I believe the record is there. You know, Jim Griffin and I have to work together, and Jim over the years and myself have not seen eye to eye on a number of projects and concerns. But we've worked well together in promoting the city of Hornell. I think the agency and Jim as executive director have done a tremendous job for this city. A lot of people sit back and criticize, and they make assumptions that aren't there. But Jim is a tireless worker for the city of Hornell, does an outstanding job in a recruiting industry and in trying to retain industry here. People have got to understand economic development is a very competitive business. And I think Hornell IDA is looked upon statewide in the Northeast as one of the finest IDAs in the country. So yes, I think that everyone can always do better, me included. But I believe we've done an outstanding job. Jim has done an outstanding job. The agency's done an outstanding job, and I think we'll continue to do that.
All right, Mike Caruso's response.
My feelings on the IDA is that the director's been there 20 years, okay? He makes $100,000, $200,000. I don't think anybody really knows. I'm not saying he's doing a good job. I'm not saying he's doing a bad job. I feel that we have 2 Jim Griffins running around Hornell right now. I think that maybe Jim ought to step aside and maybe have Shawn take that slot, because I think Shawn could do a good job in there. He seems to have the connections around Albany and stuff, and I think that'd be a good position for him. Bring some new blood and new ideas into the position. And I take care of the little details in the city.
All right, you're listening to a call-in program aimed at the 2 candidates, Mike Caruso, Republican candidate for mayor, and Democrat Shawn Hogan, the incumbent. And a moment ago I said we were not trying to have a debate. Let me explain that. There's been some issue here between these two as to Is someone dodging a debate? Do they both want a debate? So when I sent the letters out, I said, look, it's not a debate. We'll set that aside. It's a chance for people to call in. But a few minutes ago in my office, I said, don't be surprised if you start exchanging between each other, and I'm not opposed to that as long as you both agree. Now, we go back to the phones, and I'll pick up 4141. Go ahead. You're on the air.
Hi, Kevin.
Yes.
I think this is a question for our city attorney. So I'll ask Shawn Hogan to respond, please.
All right.
When are we going to get back our money from the Gates-Hornell deal? And why has the Bacobo project on Pleasant Street been sitting around for half a decade?
Okay.
To answer your first question, the Gates-Rockwell deal was one that we put together to attract the department store to the former Tullen Rockwell building. We were very excited about that project, and if it had been a success, certainly I think the community would have been very excited about it. Unfortunately, it was a failure. The principals in the Gates-Rockwell declared bankruptcy. We had a legal and personal guarantee from those individuals, but you can't get blood out of a rock, so to speak. We exercised every legal option we could to try to regain that money, and if the individual ever comes into any money, certainly we have liens on that. Unfortunately, in the bankruptcy court, which I'm not familiar with, but there was no assets that could be identified. So we'll continue to work on that. But as far as the Bocobo property, that property is now on the tax rolls. That is owned by Francisco Bocobo and being managed locally by Midas Development Company or Painter Realty. That is owned by them. It's privately owned, and if, I would much prefer to see that house occupied, but they do maintain it. They do have heat and light in it, and they pay their taxes. So other than that, I can't tell a private citizen what corporations out in Chicago, Illinois, and we had a hard time tracing the title of the property. And it's a very legal and complicated process, but that was one of the problems, Mike.
Now, we have a caller waiting. We can come back to that if you want to, but I want people to call in. They have a chance. Go ahead. You're on the air. Thank you for waiting. Hello?
Yes.
Go ahead.
This is for Mr. Caruso.
Caruso.
He said that he was in charge of the demolition on Washington School, that first question, and it was all up and by the books. Could he tell me who removed the asbestos, and were they state licensed?
Since you brought that up, okay, I think Mayor Hogan is aware of this, since the DEC, the Army Corps of Engineers, the Department of Labor, Mark Moore, let's see who else was over. We had every agency in New York State over there, okay. I called John Swanson, the DEC in Avon, New York, and I explained his situation. He advised me that I would have to, if I own the property, I could remove that myself. If I did remove it, I would have to double bag it. It would have to go in a landfill liner that I could not transport over 500 pounds at a time. So in the process of a year, I removed it and I bagged it. And I took it over to the county. And when I took it over to the county, I not only took pictures,